The human maid who calmed an alien prince. Orbital habitat K9 Halcyon never slept. Lights hummed. Floors shone like water. Air tasted like metal and cold rain. Lena Keats pushed her mop across the mirror corridor and watched her own face slide in the reflection. She was a human janitor. She kept her head down. She did not speak unless spoken to. That was the rule on Halcyon. For armored guards turned the corner. They were Aurelian, tall, silver blue, graceful like blades. Their living armor shifted as they moved, soft hiss, soft glow. Lena froze, mop halfway to the bucket. One guard lifted a hand. Human, you will follow. Her heart kicked hard. Did I do something wrong? No answer. They formed around her like a moving wall and led her into a part of the station she had only seen from far away. Doors irised open on their breath. Floors flexed underfoot, alive and warm. The air grew sweet, almost like spice. They reached the Aurelian suite. It was a garden of light trapped inside a room. Walls rippled with slow color, as if thinking. The ceiling showed a live starfield that seemed close enough to touch. Machines hummed like a choir. A cluster of attendants, tall and pale, stood in a circle. Voices low, eyes bright. When Lena entered, every face turned to her. She is the one, an attendant said. She seems ordinary, another said. The group parted. The Emperor stood there. Solarin was taller than the rest, 8 feet at least. His skin shone like deep ocean at night. 4 dark eyes watched Lena with a calm that made her feel both small and seen. He wore a simple robe the color of midnight water. No crown, no jewels, only a narrow band of metal at his brow. In his arms lay a child. The child's small hands clutched at the Emperor's robe. His skin flickered pale with distress. His mouth opened and closed with a thin, high sound that trembled in the air. For what eyes blinked too fast? The sound made Lena's bones ache. Human, the Emperor said softly. My son will not sleep. 3 full cycles. Since we docked. Our methods fail, but our monitors show a pattern. He quiets only when you are near. Yesterday you cleaned the deck outside his chamber. You sang. Lena's throat tightened. She had been alone. She had sung an old song without thinking, the one her mother used when storms broke the roof. The Emperor stepped closer. The guard stiffened. The attendants stopped breathing. Would you hold him? He said. For a moment. Lena's hands trembled. She wiped them on her coverall, slow, careful. The Emperor lowered the child into her arms. Prince Kale was lighter than she expected. Warm, like a small animal. His skin felt like cool silk under a thin heat. He twisted, searching. Lena found the old rhythm without thinking. Rock, breathe, rock. She hummed one breath of the storm song. Only air, no voice. The high sound cut off. The room went still. Kale blinked up at her, all 4 eyes wide. His fingers climbed to her collar, then to a curl that had escaped her tie. He held it. He made a small sound. Not pain this time. Something like relief. His body loosened against her. Breath deepened. Shoulders softened. The tiny muscles in his jaw unclenched. Remarkable, someone whispered. Neural stress drops at once. Lena kept rocking. Rock, breathe, rock. She felt the child's heartbeat slow. The noise in the room faded until the only sounds were air and the low song of the machines. What is your name? The Emperor asked. Lena Keats, Your Majesty. Lena Keats, he said, tasting the syllables like music. For the duration of our stay, you will attend the prince as rest-bearer. You will be compensated. Your former contract is ended. It was not a question. Lena's mouth was dry. She looked at the boy in her arms. He had fallen asleep. His grip on her hair had not eased. She could feel the fragile weight of trust in that small hand. I will serve, she said. Good. The Emperor's voice warmed by a fraction. He has chosen well. The chief attendant stepped in close. Silence during the rest period, she whispered. No sound. No sudden movement. The walls will match his biorhythm. Do not disturb the cycle. Lena nodded. She sat when they guided her to a grown chair that shaped itself to her body. The prince did not stir. His breath moved like a tide. Minutes stretched. Her arms burned, but she did not shift. She thought of Earth far below, of a rented room, of a little sister who once refused to sleep unless Lena held her through thunder. Love had been the only thing that worked then. Maybe love had a shape the machines could not find. The door sighed. The Emperor had returned alone. No guards now. He stood beside her and watched his son sleep. Our physicians find nothing special in your biology, he said, voice barely above air. Yet my son dreams only with you. I can't explain it, Lena said. I only care. He studied her face for a long time. Care, he repeated. A simple word. Heavy meaning. He looked at his son again, and something gentle passed over the edges of his eyes. We leave for Aurelia Prime in 26 hours, he said. You will come. Lena's breath hitched. No human went to the Aurelian homeworld. Not ever. My sister. I send credits, she began. A stipend has been arranged, he said. 5 times what you sent. Do not fear. He turned to go, then paused at the door. There are many kinds of power, Lena Keats. Ships. Laws. Fear. And there is this. He nodded at the sleeping child in her arms. This may be the rarest. The door closed. The suite dimmed to match a steady pulse. Lena looked down at Prince Kale. He sighed and pressed his face into the crook of her neck. In the glass of the floor, her reflection held a small alien life, like a promise. Somewhere far away, the station kept humming. Somewhere below, Earth turned. Here, in the hush between heartbeats, a human and an heir shared the first quiet the Empire had heard in days. Lena did not know it yet, but the quiet would not last. The stars outside Halcyon Station moved like slow-burning candles as the Imperial ship Radiant Crown prepared to depart. Lena Keats stood in the docking bay, clutching a small pack that contained all she owned, 3 sets of uniforms, a photo of her sister, and a half-broken music player. Everything else she left behind. She wasn't a worker anymore. She was something else now, though she still didn't understand what. A corridor of guards opened before her. The air smelled of metal and perfume. At the far end, the golden crest of the Aurelian Empire shimmered across the ship's hull like fire on glass. As she stepped forward, she could feel hundreds of eyes watching. The human crew, the alien attendants, the security drones. She was the first human ever allowed aboard an Imperial royal vessel. Inside, silence fell like gravity. The walls were alive, slowly breathing, pulsing faint light with every step she took. The floor responded to her weight, soft and warm. A whispering voice guided her through the corridors. Lena Keats. Quarters 3B. Temperature adjusted to human norms. The voice was calm, genderless, and perfectly polite, but every syllable made her feel smaller. Her assigned attendant, Vera, was waiting in her quarters. Tall, silver-skinned, with 4 eyes that shimmered like mirrors, Vera bowed slightly. Welcome, Restbearer Keats. These rooms have been reconfigured to accommodate your biology. Lena looked around. The room was larger than her entire apartment block back on Earth. The bed hovered, made of something like liquid light. A wall opened to reveal a window, stars everywhere, endless, sharp as needles. It's beautiful, she whispered. Vera's expression didn't change. These are standard quarters, she replied, which somehow made Lena feel even smaller. Then a low chime rang through the walls. Restbearer Keats, said the same soft voice. The prince enters sleep cycle in 1 rotation hour. Report to nursery chamber 1. Her heart began to race again. When she arrived, the nursery was chaos. Dozens of attendants rushed around a large, glowing pod where Prince Kale thrashed and cried, his 4 eyes wide with panic. The air shimmered from the force of his psychic distress. Objects floated, cracked, and fell in slow motion. His neural frequencies are unstable, shouted a medic. He's rejecting sedation. Everyone clear, came the Emperor's voice. He turned as Lena entered. His calm eyes met hers. Go to him. Lena didn't think. She simply moved. The attendants stepped aside like waves parting for a tide. She reached the pod and lifted the prince from it. His skin burned cold against her arms. She began to hum. The same small song, broken and human. The change was instant. The air stilled. The psychic pressure eased. The floating shards of glass dropped harmlessly to the ground. The prince's cries became hiccups, then silence. His eyes fluttered closed, and his tiny hand reached for her collar, holding fast. Gasps rippled around the room. The Emperor stepped forward, his voice low. It seems the distance between your species and mine is not as great as we believed. Lena didn't answer. She just kept rocking, afraid to breathe too loud. The Emperor turned to his staff. From now on, she does not leave his proximity. Wherever the prince goes, she follows. She will be part of the royal manifest. See to her needs. It was an order that stunned the attendants. To include a human in the manifest was unthinkable. Lena knew that even if she spoke, no one would dare challenge it. Hours later, when the ship was deep in slipstream, Lena sat beside the prince's cradle. He slept with his head against her shoulder, his small chest rising and falling in rhythm with her own. The walls had changed color, soft green now, reacting to his calm. She whispered quietly, "You're just a child, aren't you? Doesn't matter what world you're from." Vera stood by the door, watching. "You risk much by speaking without leave." Lena smiled faintly. "He can't sleep without me. I think that buys me a little grace." For a moment, something almost like amusement crossed the alien's expression. "Perhaps," Vera said. "But remember, grace in the Empire is never free." When Vera left, Lena looked back at the stars drifting beyond the window. Somewhere, far below, Earth turned gray, forgotten, and conquered. Her sister would be sleeping now, unaware that Lena was thousands of light years away, cradling the heir of their conquerors. The prince sighed in his sleep. The walls rippled again, colors shifting to match his dreams. And for the first time, Lena realized that she was no longer just a worker from a broken world. She was part of something strange, powerful, and dangerous, a secret thread binding two species who had once called each other enemies. She held the child closer and whispered, almost to herself, "It's all right. I'll keep you safe." Outside, the radiant crown sailed through the silent dark, carrying a human and an heir toward a world neither of them could yet imagine. The ship Radiant Crown broke through the last cloud layers above Aurelia Prime. From her viewport, Lena Keats saw a world unlike anything she'd imagined. Oceans of glowing silver, forests that shimmered blue-green like veins of crystal, and cities that looked alive, twisting upward as if reaching for the stars. "Welcome home," whispered Vera, her attendant, as the ship began its descent. No human eyes have ever seen this world. Lena's heart pounded. The sky pulsed with slow lightning that wasn't thunder. It was the planet's own breathing energy. As the vessel landed, she tightened her hold on Prince Kale, who was wide awake, blinking curiously. His small hands pressed against the glass, his reflection splitting across four dark eyes. When the ship's hatch opened, a wave of sound met her, thousands of harmonic tones layered together. Aurelians did not cheer. Their voices resonated, vibrating through the ground like music that belonged to another kind of heart. The Emperor stepped out first, robes flowing like liquid starlight. Behind him, Lena followed, clutching the prince. Every Aurelian on the landing platform froze. Whispers rippled through the crowd. "A human. She carries the heir." The Chancellor, Varric of the Old Houses, approached, tall even by Aurelian standards. His silver-blue skin faded to pale steel with age. "Your Majesty," he said, bowing with perfect precision, "we welcome your return." However, the presence of an unclassified organism within the imperial circle. "She is classified," interrupted the Emperor smoothly. "Royal rest-bearer." Varric's four eyes narrowed. "A human, Majesty?" "The human who calmed my son when no medicine could," the Emperor said. "She goes where the prince goes. You will respect this decree." It was the first time Lena realized what kind of risk he was taking for her. Every gaze that touched her was sharpened by centuries of pride and prejudice. She bowed her head, gripping Kale tighter as if he might vanish. They walked through the palace gates. And there, for the first time, Lena saw what the Empire truly was. The corridors weren't built, they grew. Walls moved like muscles under skin, adjusting to the air's rhythm. Light came not from lamps, but from veins of living crystal embedded in the structure itself. The air hummed with energy, reacting to the emotions of those who passed. When Kale laughed softly, the walls brightened. When he shivered, the light dimmed. Her quarters were prepared next to the royal nursery, an entire suite scaled for human use. The furniture reformed when she touched it. Even the air temperature bent around her comfort. It was overwhelming, like living inside a dream that was always watching. That night, after the attendants had left, the Emperor himself came to her room. He stood near the cradle where Kale slept, watching the boy's chest rise and fall. "His patterns are stable," he said quietly. "You do what science cannot." "I don't understand why," Lena said honestly. "I'm just here. I care for him." The Emperor turned to her. "Care," he repeated, as if tasting the word again. "Among my kind, we calculate bonds through logic, not emotion. We do not understand this force that drives humans to protect what is not theirs. Lena hesitated. Maybe it's just love, she said. The Emperor's 4 eyes studied her face for a long time. That word, he said, does not exist in our language. Yet my son responds to it. He walked to the window, where the night glowed with ribbons of blue aurora. His mother, the Empress, was of the tide-born caste, an empathic lineage long thought extinct. Our union was political, but she carried something different in her mind. When she died, giving him life, the court whispered it was fate's punishment. But I think she left him a gift, this sensitivity, this connection. He feels everything. The entire palace's emotions press on him at once. Only you silence the storm. Lena looked at the sleeping child and felt her throat tighten. He's just a child. He needs peace. I'll make sure he has it. The Emperor nodded slowly. You must. Because peace is the rarest currency in this empire. He turned to leave, but stopped at the door. You will begin training tomorrow. Language. Protocol. Law. You must understand the world you've entered. Many will see your presence as weakness. You will need knowledge to survive them. After he left, Lena sat beside Kale's cradle. The walls of the palace breathed around her, soft and alive. In the hum of alien life, she could feel a rhythm faintly echoing her own heartbeat. She brushed a strand of hair from the child's face. His skin shimmered faintly under her fingers. Love doesn't need translation, she whispered. Outside her window, the city of Aurelia Prime pulsed like a living heart. Somewhere far away, under those shining towers, powerful beings were already whispering her name. And none of them were saying it kindly. Lena had crossed from the conquered to the core, and now, surrounded by light that could burn through steel, she was the only human inside the beating heart of the Empire. Weeks turned into months inside the Palace of Living Light, and Lena Keats learned quickly that beauty here was only a mask for control. Every movement, every word, even the way she bowed was studied by the watchers hidden in walls that could listen. The palace itself had a mind. She rose each morning before the suns of Aurelia Prime touched the spires. Prince Kale would already be awake, his 4 eyes half open, sensing emotions before words were spoken. When she smiled, he calmed. When she was afraid, he knew. Her lessons began soon after. Instructor Thalise, a soft-voiced Aurelian scholar, taught her the structure of their society, the Council of 12, the old houses, the codes of conduct that governed even the Emperor's breath. Every bow, every gesture carried layers of meaning. One wrong motion could be seen as insult, even treason. She practiced the alien language until her throat ached, learning to form sounds that vibrated in 2 tones at once. Thalise seemed impressed. You adapt quickly, human. Most minds would collapse under the pressure of dual resonance. Lena smiled faintly. Humans collapse every day, she said. We just get up anyway. That quiet defiance did not go unnoticed. The same afternoon, she received her first summons to the Imperial Council. Her hands shook as she entered the great chamber, a vast dome filled with rows of silver thrones. Lights swirled above like distant galaxies, and every Aurelian within turned to stare. She felt their minds press against hers, curious, cold, testing. Chancellor Varric, the same who had questioned her at the landing, stood at the central dais. Your Majesty, he said smoothly. Reports from the human sectors show troubling signs. Education levels are rising beyond what our decrees allow. Unregulated data exchange. Early signs of rebellion. The Emperor's calm eyes flicked toward Lena. And what does our human advisor say to this? The chamber froze. Lena had never spoken before the council. Her mouth went dry. She stood slowly, aware of every gaze slicing into her. Your Majesty, esteemed counselors, she began, her voice steady though her knees trembled. I cannot speak for every settlement, but I can speak for my people. When humans learn, they don't plan rebellion, they plan survival. A murmur rippled through the crowd. Varric's skin darkened, his voice sharp. You suggest we encourage such ambition? It leads to arrogance, and arrogance breeds chaos. Lena lifted her chin. Or maybe it leads to better servants, better thinkers, better allies. If the Empire allows us to grow, we'll build with you. If it crushes us, we'll fight to breathe. Gasps echoed through the chamber. For a moment, she thought she had doomed herself. Then, to her astonishment, the Emperor's lips curved in something like a smile. Spoken with clarity, he said. and with courage. The council will consider her perspective. Varric's voice thinned. Majesty, surely you cannot. I can. The emperor interrupted, his tone final. The empire's strength lies not in fear, but in foresight. Let the record show that the humans' council is heard. He turned toward Lena. You are no longer merely rest-bearer. From this day, you serve as cultural liaison to the throne. The title hung in the air like thunder. No human had ever held one. When the session ended, the counselors dispersed in shimmering cloaks of disapproval. Varric brushed past her as he left, his 4 eyes gleaming. You speak boldly, little human, he said softly. Be careful that your voice does not echo too far. The palace has a way of silencing those who rise too quickly. That night, Lena found herself unable to sleep. The palace lights dimmed to a heartbeat rhythm, mirroring Kale's calm breathing in the next chamber. She sat by his bedside, staring out the translucent wall at the endless glow of Aurelia Prime. She had done what no human had ever dared, spoken to the rulers as an equal. And yet, she could feel the danger already curling around her name like smoke. When Kale stirred in his sleep, she stroked his small hand. He murmured in his dream, voice clear as glass, Don't be afraid, Lena. I can feel them. They can't hurt you while I'm here. Her chest tightened. You need to rest, my little prince. He smiled faintly without waking. You make the noise stop. Outside, a storm moved across the glowing horizon, its lightning silent and blue. Lena watched it in the glass and whispered to the sleeping child, Then I'll keep making it stop. For you. For all of us. But deep down she knew that every word she had spoken before the council was now a spark, and sparks, in a palace made of light, could start a fire that even emperors couldn't control. 2 years passed within the living walls of the Aurelian palace, and Lena Keats no longer moved like a stranger. Her step had purpose now. The palace responded to her, its walls dimmed to her calm, brightened to her laughter, and quieted when she entered the prince's chambers. Prince Kale had grown taller, his 4 dark eyes clearer, sharper. He had learned to hide his emotions the way the Aurelians did, smooth face, slow breath, perfect posture, but with Lena, he didn't pretend. Around her, he was still the boy who once cried himself to sleep in her arms. Again, he said, holding out his small hand. Lena smiled. The air shimmered between them, rippling like heat over sand. Tiny glass figures, birds, stars, shapes she didn't have names for, floated in the air, controlled by his mind. His gift had become astonishing. Higher, she encouraged. But don't force it. Feel, don't fight. The figures rose, twirling in rhythm to a soundless music only Kale could hear. Then, in an instant, the harmony shattered. A surge of psychic energy burst outward, cracking the crystal wall behind him. Kale stumbled back, panting, frightened by his own strength. Lena caught him. It's all right. You just lost focus. I'm sorry, he whispered. When I try too hard, I feel everyone. His voice trembled. All of them. Their anger. Their fear. It's so loud. Lena brushed his hair back gently. Then you need to learn how to make your own silence. Kale looked up at her, his 4 eyes glimmering. Like you do. She smiled softly. Exactly like me. Outside the nursery, unseen by the child, Chancellor Varric watched through a translucent panel. His hands folded behind his back, face expressionless, but his voice carried venom as he murmured to his aide. The human infects him with softness. If this continues, he will never rule with strength. The aide hesitated. But the emperor? The emperor will not live forever, Varric said. And when he's gone, I'll make certain the empire remembers what kind of blood sits on its throne. Later that evening, the emperor summoned Lena to the observatory, a vast dome of moving light, stars wheeling above like fireflies. Kale was asleep, and for the first time, Lena faced the emperor alone. He stood by the window, hands clasped behind him. You've become his compass, he said. His calm, his conscience. Lena lowered her head. He's a good child. But he's burdened. The emperor's gaze didn't leave the stars. Our kind were never meant to feel as he does. His mother's blood made him more than Aurelian, and less. The court whispers that he will be a weak heir. He's not weak, Lena said, firmer than she intended. He's learning what mercy is. Maybe that's what the empire needs. The emperor's eyes flicked toward her. There was no anger, only quiet understanding. You speak like someone who still believes compassion can change the strong. Where I come from, Lena said softly. It's the only thing that ever did. He regarded her for a long moment, then turned away. Be careful with your hope, Lena Keats. The walls have ears. And worse, they have memories. The next morning, a messenger arrived from the outer colonies. There had been unrest on Iridian, a mining world mostly worked by humans. Workers had refused to operate after repeated radiation leaks. Imperial soldiers had crushed the protest. Hundreds dead. The news spread through whispers in the lower quarters, but the court pretended it never happened. Kale overheard the guards. Is it true? He asked Lena, voice shaking. Humans died because they wanted safety? Yes, she said quietly. Because they were told their lives were worth less than production. He clenched his hands until his skin glowed faint blue. That's wrong. It is, Lena said. But here, wrong things stand tall and pretend to be right. The brave are the ones who push back anyway. He looked at her, eyes burning. When I'm emperor, I'll change it. Lena knelt so they were eye to eye. Then start by learning everything they hide from you. Knowledge is rebellion's sharpest blade. That night, Kale dreamed, so strongly that his power rippled through the palace, painting the walls in flickers of light and sound. Lena woke, feeling the pulse of his thoughts in the air, injustice, anger, and something deeper, resolve. Outside, the sky of Aurelia Prime flashed with lightning that made no sound. In the throne room below, Chancellor Varick spoke to a shadowed group of nobles. The child grows dangerous, he said. The human poisons his heart with guilt and pity. If we wait much longer, he will change the very bones of this empire. And the emperor? One noble asked. Varick smiled faintly. He will die believing he built peace. And his son will inherit a throne already bleeding from within. Unaware of the storm rising around her, Lena sat beside Kale's bed, humming the song that had once silenced a screaming infant. His breathing steadied. His hand reached for hers, trusting, unafraid. The palace lights dimmed to match his heartbeat, soft and steady. But beyond those walls, in secret halls and quiet minds, the fire she'd lit was spreading, burning through stone, code, and blood. And soon, even love might not be enough to stop it. The first tremor of rebellion did not come from humans. It came from the palace itself. One morning, the walls of Aurelian Hall refused to open. The living structure, responsive to royal DNA, locked down without command. Doors sealed. Lights dimmed. Alarms sang in 3 tones that meant one thing: psychic interference. Lena Keats was already running before the guards reached her quarters. Prince Kale was in his study chamber, alone with his tutors. The air there shimmered when she entered, vibrating like heat above fire. Kale sat on the floor, surrounded by floating shards of crystal. His eyes, usually so calm, were burning. They lied, he said, voice trembling. The council, Father's advisors. They've been using humans as test subjects on the outer moons. They said it was medicine. It's not. Lena froze. How do you know this? I felt it, Kale whispered. When I tried to trace the communication pulse from Iridian. The pain was still there, in their minds. Like echoes. The Emperor arrived moments later, his presence silencing the room. He looked at Lena, then his son. Who told you this? No one, Kale said. The Empire itself did. For a heartbeat, father and son faced each other in silence. Then the Emperor sighed, the weight of centuries on his shoulders. You should not have seen that. You are not ready. Not ready to know the truth. Kale snapped. You built this empire on lies and call it order. The Emperor's 4 eyes glimmered with warning, but his voice remained low. An empire cannot live on truth alone, my son. It lives on balance. Kale rose, trembling with fury. Then balance is just the word the powerful use to explain cruelty. The walls brightened dangerously, reacting to his psychic flare. Lena stepped forward, touching his arm. Kale breathed. Don't let anger speak for you. The moment she did, the light dimmed. His rage faltered. The Emperor noticed it. Again, the human stopped what the mighty empire could not. He looked at her, something unreadable in his expression. Leave us, Lena Keats. But that is an order. She obeyed. But as she stepped into the corridor, she could hear their voices echo behind the closing door. Father and son, ruler and heir, tearing at each other across a divide no science could bridge. Days passed. Rumors grew. Humans whispering in the lower colonies. soldiers questioning their orders. Even some Aurelians began asking whether empathy was truly weakness. Lena's days were quieter now. Kale had withdrawn into himself, seeing fewer tutors, eating less. When he did speak, it was only of change. If the Empire knew what it felt like to be powerless, he said one night, maybe it would stop crushing others. Maybe, Lena replied softly. But power doesn't listen. It only watches who dares to stand. He met her gaze. Then we make it listen. A week later, the Emperor summoned her to the Council of 12 once again. The chamber glowed with harsh white light. Chancellor Varric was there, his face triumphant. Your Majesty, Varric began. The unrest among the human sectors grows worse. The prince's sympathy only fuels it. The solution is simple. Remove the human influence corrupting him. His eyes flicked toward Lena. The Emperor's voice was calm, but cold. Be careful, Chancellor. You walk close to treason. Varric bowed low. I walk close to truth. Then, turning toward the other counselors, he said, if the throne falls, remember who warned you first. The meeting ended in silence. But the silence had a shape. It was the shape of war. That night, the sky above Aurelia Prime burned violet. Lightning cracked across the upper spires. Inside his private chamber, the Emperor called for Lena. She entered to find him weakened, his luminescent skin dimmer, his steps slower. I am dying, he said simply. A disease of the core. It has been with me for years. Lena's chest tightened. Does Kale know? He suspects. But I must ask something of you before my time ends. He handed her a small crystalline sphere. Inside it swirled what looked like liquid light. This contains every record the Council has erased. Human experiments, destroyed worlds, forbidden truths. When the time comes, give it to my son. Let him use it as he must. She held the sphere carefully. Why trust me with this? Because I have watched you, he said. You are not afraid of power. You simply refuse to worship it. That is what my empire needs. He paused, his 4 eyes dimming with fatigue. Protect him, Lena. When I am gone, they will come for both of you. When the Emperor died 3 months later, the sky wept light for 7 days. Kale was crowned in silence. The nobles bowed, but Lena could feel the hatred under their gestures. And as the ceremony ended, she caught sight of Varric standing in the shadows, watching her, smiling. Later, in the privacy of the nursery that was now empty of toys, Kale looked at her. He's gone, he whispered. And they already plot against me. Lena handed him the sphere. Then it's time to decide what kind of emperor you'll be. The one who hides the truth, or the one who changes it. Kale closed his hands around it, the light flaring between his fingers. No more silence, he said. No more lies. The air around them began to hum, low, deep, alive. Outside, the palace walls seemed to pulse with warning. Somewhere in the depths of the Aurelian capital, alarms began to wail. Not for invasion, not for disaster, for change. And change, in an empire built on control, was the greatest danger of all. The empire of Aurelia had never known a morning like this. The twin suns rose red and silver over the capital's crystal towers, painting the sky with colors that had no human name. Every balcony of the Palace of Living Light was filled with beings from hundreds of worlds, Aurelians, humans, and alien emissaries alike. And in the center of it all stood Emperor Kale, no longer a frightened child, but a tall figure cloaked in flowing black and silver, for calm eyes reflecting the entire horizon. Beside him, Ambassador Lena Keats watched silently, her hair streaked with silver now, her uniform bearing the sigil of 2 intertwined species. She had survived 3 assassination attempts, a dozen council trials, and years of whispers that she was the human witch who tamed the air. Yet she stood still, steady as ever, the living proof that empathy could outlast cruelty. The square below trembled with anticipation. Today would decide whether the empire changed or fell apart. The last 10 years had been an unending storm. After the old emperor's death, Chancellor Varric had waged a silent war against the new reign, shaping laws, manipulating governors, stirring resentment among the old houses. He called it the preservation of purity. Kale called it treason wrapped in tradition. When Varric's agents bombed a human learning colony on Iridian, the choice became clear. Kale invoked the sphere, the forbidden archive his father had left in Lena's care, and revealed everything. For the first time, the truth spread faster than the empire could silence it. Billions saw what had been done in their name. The council chambers burned that night. And amid the flames, the emperor made a promise. No more empires built on fear. No more silence bought with suffering. That promise had brought them here, to this morning. Trumpets of living metal sounded across the plaza. The Dawn Accord was about to be signed. It would make every human in the empire a recognized citizen, free to study, trade, and serve without chains. It would open the council to voices beyond Aurelia Prime. It would end 10,000 years of superiority. Varric, old but unbroken, stepped forward from the shadows of the dais. His voice carried the cold weight of tradition. This treaty ends the empire, he declared. What our ancestors built, you undo with sentiment. You give the weak equal say over the strong. Kale regarded him quietly. Power that cannot share itself was never strength, he said. You forget what it means to rule, Varric hissed. You were meant to lead your kind to greater dominion, not lower yourself to the dust of the conquered. Lena stepped forward then, her voice calm, every word clear enough to echo through the plaza. When I first came here, I was the dust. But dust, when gathered, makes stone. And stone, when united, can build again. Varric turned toward her, fury sparking in his eyes. You have poisoned our line with your human weakness. Kale's expression softened, but his tone cut sharper than any blade. No, Chancellor. She reminded it what it means to be alive. Varric's hand twitched toward the hidden blade beneath his robe. Guards moved instantly, surrounding him. The crowd roared as the Chancellor was dragged away, his last words dissolving into the noise. Empires don't die from enemies. They die from mercy. Silence fell again. The Emperor looked down at the treaty scroll, woven from living crystal that recorded thought as light. His voice, when he spoke, resonated through every wall and every being that could hear. For centuries, we ruled through fear. Today, we choose a harder road, the road of understanding. He pressed his hand to the treaty. Light erupted upward, splitting into two colors, the deep blue of Aurelian life and the gold warmth of humanity. They intertwined, forming a single rising arc that painted the morning sky. The Dawn Accord was sealed. The plaza erupted into sound, 1,000 harmonies blending with human cheers, raw and unrestrained. For the first time in recorded history, the Empire's anthem was joined by another rhythm, Earth's old melody of hope. Later, when the noise faded, Kale and Lena stood on the palace balcony together. The suns were climbing higher now, and the light cast no shadows. They'll fight us, Lena said softly. Some will never accept this. I know, Kale replied. But we've planted something that can't be killed anymore. She turned to look at him, seeing the child he once was in the lines of the ruler he had become. Your father would be proud. He smiled faintly. So would your sister. Lena's throat tightened. You remember her? I never forget the ones who carried love through fear, he said. They stood in silence as flocks of glass-winged creatures crossed the horizon. Below them, humans and Aurelians celebrated side by side, awkward but laughing, uncertain but together. Kale extended his hand, and Lena took it. Do you think peace will last? He asked quietly. Maybe not forever, she said. But it's a start. And starts are what make forever possible. He nodded once, solemn. Then he raised their joined hands toward the twin suns. The light caught the treaty's reflection, scattering it into the sky like 1,000 new stars. Across the empire, from frozen moons to warm oceans, people looked up and saw it. The sign of a new age, an age born not from conquest, but from connection. And somewhere deep in the palace, where the walls still remembered the cries of a sleepless child, the living light pulsed once more, slow, steady, peaceful. The empire of fear was gone. The age of understanding had begun.